bad thing happens, you can either let it destroy you, define you, or strengthen you. Choose wisely. This is Mark Devine with the Unbeatable Mind podcast. Thanks for joining me today. If you're a longtime listener, welcome back. If you're new, super stoked to have you here. You happen to land on a solo episode, a solo cast, and I am reading a chapter from my edited and updated Unbeatable Mind book, which got this whole journey started back in 2011. I had a little time during the 2020 lockdowns to spend a deep dive on the book and to edit and update things from the perspective I have today. Chapter 8 is titled Sharpening an Offensive Mindset. Before I get into this, I'd like to tell you about the Unbeatable Mind challenge that we just created. It's a 30-day challenge to really introduce you and to habituate the daily practices of Unbeatable Mind, such as winning in the mind and our 20x action loop and our 20x mind power training. It really is quite extraordinary. It is world-class in its production. I think I filmed over 40 videos for this challenge, and you'll have a daily training from me as well as an exercise. So it requires 15 to 20 minutes a day of practice. I think you're going to love it. To learn more and check it out. And by the way, it's super reasonable. I'm not charging a lot of money for it. I really want you to have the best year ever, to really dominate this year, to achieve your one thing mission and your 12-month goals. So it's being offered for a limited time only now, and then we're going to open it up later as an ongoing challenge. But check it out at unbeatablemind.com/challenge. Unbeatablemind.com/challenge. This is our latest and greatest work in terms of simplifying and codifying these profound practices for vertical integrated development, becoming a whole person and to be able to think with your whole body, mind, and spirit, and to make better decisions, more aligned with your calling and your passions, so you can make a bigger impact in the world. And I say, hoo-yah to that. So here we go. Chapter 8 on the book that got us all on this journey here. Quote, leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. But if you must be without one, be without the strategy. General Norman Schwarzkopf. The last of the statements in the Navy SEAL ethos is, quote, earn your trident every day. This is a reminder that when it comes to developmental work, it's all about the journey. The destination is never the goal. In the SEALs, once we earned that trident, we had to continue to earn it every day in order to keep it. That required a relentless focus on improvement, a little bit every day. The training is endless and relentless. You are never there. There is no there. An operator can't rest on the glow of past accomplishments for very long. So I say that you too must earn your stripes every day. You can't throttle back and assume that your work is done and that the work you've done to date will carry you forward. The saying, the only easy day was yesterday, was something that prodded us on our journey during the SEAL training. If you stop practicing, you'll find yourself backsliding, having to scramble to catch up from behind, or you may quit altogether while you watch your growth stall and others thrive while you're on the sidelines. Guess what? Organizations have the same issue. Grow or go. It's estimated that more than half of today's Fortune 500 companies will go. They'll be marginalized in a few short years. As many have made the fatal mistake and found themselves irrelevant in the rapid change of recent years. Constant adaptation is the new normal, and the best leaders are constantly seeking improvement and will always be pivoting to adapt while building a culture of adaptability, growth, and resiliency. Learning how to embrace change while avoiding threats and also scanning for opportunities requires what we call an offensive mindset. It's the same as being sheepdog strong, which means that you have the mindset to protect yourself, to protect your organization, protect your team and your family in whatever VUCA environment you find yourself in, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. You're not going to play a victim or stand around as a helpless bystander. An offensive mindset requires that you embrace the discipline of excellence and earn your personal trident or your team's trident every single day. I'll tell you a story about sheeps and wolves and sheepdogs. My friend, Dr. David Grossman, retired Army guy, deep thinker on the psychology of the warrior. His book, On Combat, The Psychology and Physiology of Deadly Conflict in War and Peace, offers a metaphor of sheep's, wolves, and sheepdogs. His view is that the vast majority of people are sheep, grazing in ignorant bliss. And a small percentage of our population are wolves. Again, this can be looked at both organizationally and individually. The wolves are intent to prey on the sheep. They go after the weaker sheep who are grazing on the fringes, out of the watchful eye of the herd, or the flock in this case. Fortunately, there is an animal that is driven to protect the sheep from the wolves, and that's the sheepdog. Just as there's a small percentage of the human population who stand between human sheeps and the human wolves, or the organizational sheeps and the organizational wolves. These are the protectors and warriors. The human sheepdog is committed to protecting the sheep at risk of their own well-being. It's their duty. Anyone on the path to being unbeatable can step into this archetypal role when needed. That need could be to protect your family from an armed intruder, or to help if you observe an accident on the road, or even to navigate others to safety if you were in an active shooter situation or any crisis. You may be the one who can actually diffuse the threat. I recall one of our SEALFIT graduates was a school superintendent who was able to do just that when a student brought some weapons into the classroom at his school with an intent to use them. This man diffused the threat before the SWAT team got there. And he prevented an active shooter crisis because he acted like a sheepdog when he wanted to or needed to. What's your take on this thought? Not everyone buys into this idea. Some think that we have paid professionals who do that. And my experience is, if you wait for the paid professional, it's often too late. Sheepdogs can make others nervous because they sense that the sheepdog is comfortable with violence. I had a neighbor years ago who, when he didn't see me for days, just assumed that I'd been gallivanting through foreign lands, rolling up the bad guys. He loved that a SEAL sheepdog was his neighbor, even though I made him nervous. He won't do anything to prepare himself to be a sheepdog. He thinks it's not his place. He has the 911 button on his telephone. But like I said, in my opinion, that's not enough. Trained and skillful application of violence, as well as a self-awareness and self-control to avoid using that violence, sheepdogs are the most disciplined members of society. Most likely, they're clear about their purpose and mission and committed to making a difference in life. The violent capacity of the sheepdog differs greatly from the violent capacity of the wolf. First, it's trained. Next, it's disciplined and controlled. And finally, it's only used in defense and as a last resort. See, the sheepdog is trained to control the application of force amongst its full spectrum. And also understanding that requires the training of physical, mental, and emotional aspects of force. I once read the following headline: Lost in smartphones, San Francisco train passengers didn't notice the gunman until he pulled the trigger. That's scary. Constant distraction and the culture of ease has pulled more and more people into the sheep mindset. But the sheepdog doesn't do that. They maintain situational awareness. He or she doesn't let a smartphone degrade that awareness. I'm going to take a look at some rules for developing a sheepdog mindset so that you can begin to orient your mind and to train for this so that you can be part of the solution and not a victim. Here's some sheepdog rules. 1, don't be a passive bystander in a crisis. Don't just be the looky-loo and pull out your camera to film it like everyone else. Be prepared to offer assistance and make a positive difference. Pull your head out of that smartphone. Pay attention to what's going on around you. And learn to overcome any fear that's holding you back from taking action. One way I did this was to take a course in wilderness first response, which is like a prerequisite, if you will, to a wilderness emergency medical technician. It gave me all the skills to deal with handling any type of medical scenario I could come across, whether I'm in the wilderness or even on the road or in a civilian situation. Next, activate your internal scanning unit. We all have an internal situational awareness sensor, if you will, which detects danger. For most, it's not activated. It's shut off. I loved Colonel Jeff Cooper's color system for situational awareness, which helps us to switch it on or to know when to switch it on. In that color system, white represents zero awareness, or you could say complete ignorance, meaning that the internal radar is literally clicked off. That's the sheep grazing in ignorance. The color yellow represents a state of passive alertness, sort of like your radar is scanning passively for threats. This is good if you've trained yourself to do that. It's a low energy scan, doesn't take a lot of energy. You're not, creeping around cars or anything like that. And this should be your norm when you're out in public. You're just breathing deeply, maintaining that calm, rest and digest mode. So you're practicing tactical breathing, not overly aroused, not stressed, not agitated, not anxious, just calm. And you're relaxed and just taking it all in. You're looking for context and changes in the context. Orange represents a more heightened state of awareness when something in the context pings your radar, indicating a threat. This is your alert. And now you're going to focus your attention to that threat. It's like if on a scanner, a radar, if you've obviously seen it in the movies, or if you're military, you know what I'm talking about. It's scanning. You don't see anything except for just, background noise. And all of a sudden the threat pings and you'll see a green light. And all your attention then gets focused on that light. And now your situational awareness begins to get more channeled to take in information about that specific threat. And so if you're in an urban situation and you ping a threat, such as a potential bad guy or shooter situation or car crash, then you're going to look for resources to support you, any other danger around, anybody else injured, escape routes, anybody with weapons, things that you can use to support you, people that you can use to support you, etc. So you're escalating. Your energy system is leveling up. You're going to put a lot of resources in this. Essentially, you're getting ready for a fight. You're going to get out of that parasympathetic rest and digest, relax mode and into fight or flight to jack yourself up and get ready. But you haven't taken massive action yet because you still are taking information in. You're still in the orient and decide phase of the OODA loop, the first being the observe and the last being the act. Observe, orient, decide, act. Now, red in the Cooper color system, this is the act. This represents game time. It's immediate action. You're going to engage to counter the threat, or you're going to get everyone to safety, yourself and everyone to safety. And there might be a bevy of other actions, but you're not going to freeze. And you're not going to just run with your back turned to whatever the threat is, right? You are going to, as a sheepdog, you're going to engage with awareness and with skill. So the third thing I want to talk about is employing what I call offensive mindset SOPs, or standard operating procedures. And this helps you when you're using that Cooper color system. First, always operate from yellow in public. Very rarely will you be in white. But the only time you'd be in white where your guard is down is when you're in a completely safe scenario. You're at home, door's locked, there's no indicators of threat, you crack a beer, and you can be in white. But even then, when you do this training, there's a little bit of you that's still ready for something to change it to yellow or to orange. I said this before, but don't be on a smartphone while walking and driving, or even in conversation with another human being. It breaks my heart to see families at a dinner table at a restaurant, everyone pecking away on their iPhones. Not only does it break my heart for their relationship, but the threat that they put themselves in as sheep. If you use public transportation, scan your environment when you get on the bus or train or plane. Sit preferably near the back with a good view of the entire scene. Keep your smartphone off, at least until you're certain there's no threat. And whenever it comes to a stop, you repeat this process. If you're in a restaurant or another public space, an open public space, scan the area before you enter. Scan the area inside when you enter. And if you detect a potential threat while you're there, then discreetly scan that, but elevate from yellow to orange. And you're going to sit with a good panoramic view of the establishment. Then enjoy your experience. You can check your smartphone in the bathroom. If you know any military folks, you'll know that they always will sit in the back of the restaurant with their back to the wall so they can see the door. Drives my wife crazy. And lastly, don't be paranoid, but just prepared. I'm not suggesting that you become a little bit nuts about this. It's not necessary. We live in a very safe world. However, stuff happens, right? We know that. And stuff can happen in an instant. My point here is don't be a victim. Be part of the solution. I'm not trying to recruit a vigilante force. I just want to make sure that you're prepared to take care of things and get your loved ones and your team out of safety, get your organization to safety in a crisis. So this offensive mindset will go a long way to help you be a protector when needed. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about that offensive mindset. Preparation of a sheepdog mindset is characterized by what we call this binary switch, this on-off switch, which needs to be developed. And that switch controls this protective force, which can be turned on and off at will. That level of control combined with the awareness is somewhat uncanny. It's got to be trained until it's an unconscious competence. You shift into it automatically when the situation pings from yellow to orange and then red. And your spirit, your mind and your spirit together, I should say, let's do this. And then you act to end that threat. And then you shift back to orange and then to yellow, calming your breathing, moving back into the rest and digest parasympathetic state. Much of our SEAL training had this effect of developing that offensive mindset. One training in particular was very valuable, and that was my SCARS, Special Combat Aggressive Reactionary System, hand-to-hand combat training. They don't do that anymore in the SEAL teams, but when I went through training, it was a really powerful aspect of our training. One of the things we trained was what we call the binary switch. And this was also trained in my ninjutsu black belt test. It went like this. 6 senior students would place bamboo poles over the testing student. The bamboo went over the ankles, the hips, the chest, and the final one was over the throat. Actually, there are 8 students. So one on each side would then sit down on this bamboo. The pull over the neck, like I mentioned, was last, and that's the existential threat to the student. Within seconds of them placing the pull over the neck and sitting on it, the flow of blood is stopped, and the time to respond becomes critical. Remember, this is a black belt student testing for his black belt, and he's been training for 4 to 5 years in the offensive mindset. And in this moment, their survival instinct, their sheepdog instinct is immediately triggered. Unconsciously, the student is not even deciding consciously at that point. It's their spirit, I think, that's deciding to choose life. They rationally know the black belts won't let them die, but there's this piece that just acts anyways. In an instant, the students are shattering the bamboo poles as they're up on their feet, sending the black belts rolling in an explosion of reflexive willpower to end this threat. It's powerful to watch. This experience gives the newly minted black belt an anchor to know that they can switch from passive to massive explosive action, that binary switch I talked about, without conscious thought. This takes a little training. There's never a bad time to boost your immune system. But I don't need to tell you how important a strong immune system is right now, given the global health crisis that's been spreading across the planet. P30M from Bioptimizer are a probiotic that improves your digestion and nutrient absorption, helping to ensure your digestive tract and immune system stays strong and healthy. While many other probiotics on the market don't even survive your own stomach acid, P30M is fully tested to make sure the probiotic strains not only survive in your body, but also don't compete with each other. So you're as protected as possible from the growth of bad bacteria and other pathogens. Also, while other probiotics require refrigeration or can die in transport and on the shelf, P30M doesn't need refrigeration at all. It's been clinically proven to give you more energy, lead to less bloating, more mental clarity, and to shift your metabolism into fat burning mode. So if you're ready to boost your immune system, have healthier digestion, and burn fat, go check out bioptimizers.com/unbeatable. That's bioptimizers.com/unbeatable. You can use the promo code Unbeatable10 to get 10% off your order. 2 things to remember here. Go to bioptimizers.com/unbeatable and to use the promo code Unbeatable10 or 10. There's never been a more important time to boost your immune system than today. So go to bioptimizers.com/unbeatable now and start living stronger. Hoo-yah. My sensei in ninjutsu used to always say that we've got to learn to be the subject and not the object of someone else's designs or circumstances. We must control and frame our experience to create a powerful story of our own indomitability. And then we'll have others adapt to our reality. So when you become the author of the script of your life, of course, it requires you to think a new way. An offensive mindset is that way, where you get to dictate how things go and how they end. I once told a story in this earlier chapter of this book when I was in Malaysia and I confronted a bunch of tough guys who had dubious intent. Basically, they wanted to kick my ass. And at that point, my sheepdog mindset immediately switched. The binary switch went on. I went from orange. Well, I was in orange. And in that orange moment, I created a whole new script in my mind that had me as the subject and not the object of their violence. And what I mean by that is in my mind, both with imagery and my self-talk and in my felt sense of reality, I was the subject. I was the one that was in control of this situation, even though they outnumbered me 3-1. I would not be the object of any of their violence or of their intentions. This shift vastly bolstered my entire being and my sense of strength. And I became able to determine how they will react to my new powerful frame of mind. As a result of this shift in my field of energy, they took pause, sensing that something was different and they weren't in control, and they moved on. To sharpen your offensive mindset, we need to train it. We need to train to see threats before they escalate. Here are some practical tips. Situational awareness. Though you may be alone when called upon to step into this sheepdog mindset I'm talking about, most people find it beneficial to train with a team. It's a big part of Unbeatable Mind is that we train as a team and we grow with a team. We didn't call it the Navy SEAL individuals. We called it the Navy SEAL teams for a reason. Contrary to the cultural myth of Rambo-like staunch individualism being the warrior, it's teams of like-minded individuals who change the world for the better and who deal with crises the best. So let's train our offensive mindset with some of these following recommendations. First, consider your family as part of your team, your sheepdog team. If there's a crisis coming, such as a national disaster or really anything you could think of happening, then if you're spending all of your energy taking care of your family or your team, you're not going to have much energy to help out anyone else or to be part of a broader solution. But what if everyone in your family, of course, of age, or everyone on your team, when I'm talking about an organizational team, has skills, has sheepdog offensive mindset skills. These are internal and external. They're going to be more likely to be self-sufficient and ready to support you at a team level so you can render assistance to others and you can thrive in the situation. So we can start training your family and team with that Cooper color system and practice awareness drills like those described in the book. And we want to have fun with this training, but ensure that everyone understands the reason behind it and that it's worth this time. Not only when the crisis hit, but because that training in itself will develop character. Also, you can have the team prepare and the family prepare a crisis readiness kit with essential items. Now I'm talking about like a disaster crisis now, but that items would include like a medical kit, flashlights, multi-tools, radios, batteries, duct tape. Got to have duct tape, rope, strings, water, food, and if necessary, if you think people are trained or if you have the training, maybe a weapon in case you're concerned about a first shooter situation. Everybody should be, actually. You might consider a generator, sleeping bag, extra fuel for the generator, and extra fuel for your car in case you need to get out of town. It's recommended that you have enough gas to go farther than everybody else. How's that? And a quick Google search for emergency preparedness will turn up a great checklist and also some kits that are positioned for you or pre-built for you. Next, consider building a sheepdog network. It's a network of other peers, friends, companies that have a offensive mindset and want to be part of a solution. This network can be an organization, right? Or just people in your neighborhood. When a hurricane devastated his hometown of San Jose del Cabo, my brother-in-law was at the time visiting San Diego. Looting was rampant, and fortunately, this guy had a sheepdog network, and his friends down there staged themselves in his house with weapons to ward off thugs until things calmed down. Looters had ransacked much of the rest of the neighborhood, but not his house. Crisis can occur with little warning, and it does not discriminate. So it's best to be prepared with a network of sheepdog offensive mindset individuals if you're out of town or if you're injured, or just to provide more of a protective barrier. They need someone to call on too, so you're part of their network. Next, become a good communicator. If you observe a situation that's an obvious threat, such as a suspicious vehicle scoping your neighborhood, and it's obviously been there for a few days in a row and it doesn't look like it's belong. Well, take notes about the vehicle, license plate, what does it look like, what's the driver look like, what are they doing, etc. And then communicate it to your family so they can be on the watch out, to your network so they can be on the watch out, and to the authorities if you think it's a dangerous threat. Again, you don't want to be overly paranoid, and you don't want to succumb to turning in people who are, just real estate agents or, just like looking for a place to pull over and make some notes or something. But, so learn what to look for as well. But then also don't expect authorities to do anything right away. So you need to keep your eyes peeled and be prepared to take action if this individual, acts before the authorities take action, which is mostly common. And you want to prepare for the worst while expecting normal, which is kind of a conundrum. It's a great drill. You prepare for the worst, but you expect normal. And that helps you from being paranoid, or keeps you from being paranoid. When you travel, the following actions are beneficial. You want to review your travel route on the map and commit it to memory. Well, I think when I first wrote this, we used to use maps. How about that? At any rate, you want to know where you're going, especially if your phone breaks or dies or you lose it. Locate gas and food stops along the route and commit them to memory. Or just, probably better said is just make sure that you stop for gas and food and restroom routinely. Don't wait until it's too late. You can actually have extra gas can on hand when you travel, and you want to make sure you check the tire pressure and your water and make sure everything mechanical is working, and grab your go bag. Next, make yourself an undesirable target. This requires that you keep a low profile when you're out in public. Act and walk with confidence. Avoid areas where you might be vulnerable. Don't dress too loudly, and don't act like an idiot. Stay away from places not well lit, large parking structures, etc., etc. And pay attention to your sixth sense. If you start walking down an alley and you suddenly feel the tingling up your spine, then turn around and get out of there. It's a good idea to keep a high-powered flashlight on you or in your car, because if someone approaches you at night and you don't know who they are, you can pop the thing out and blind them, and if necessary, it makes a good blunt trauma weapon, at least in a pinch. You want to mentally prepare yourself to do things that you previously imagined unthinkable. It's hard to say, but it's true. A sheepdog with an offensive mindset learns to use violence for a particular purpose in a controlled manner, which requires you to do things maybe you don't want to do. Again, think about the alternative. Would you rather have someone kidnap your child, or would you rather use force and prevent it, even if you don't want to hurt another human being? This is a tough one morally for a lot of people. I'm clear where I stand on it. You don't have to go overboard. It's all in the training, though. And I've seen people of all ages and all sexes get trained with a sheepdog mindset and self-defense in 2 days. 2 days. But it's the belief and the intention behind their action which allows them to dominate a fight by doing simple things, nasty street fighting things, kicking people in the perpetrator in the groin, gouging out their eyes, thumping them across the neck with your forearm. I mean, these are really simple movements. Training in Krav Maga, scars, target focused training, injury dynamics, spear system. These are systems that I have experience with, are all very, very good for this type of get out of crisis quick. I think jiu-jitsu is a good system to develop courage, but you certainly don't ever want to go to the ground in a situation where someone's attacking, because that is a big problem. You don't ever want to be on the ground, in my opinion. Okay. Probably the most important thing, though, is that you want to win the fight in your mind before it happens, so that you respond with an offensive mindset and don't freeze when every real life situation occurs. Once in the SEALs, I was in Kenya and I was on a mission. We passed a bus. This is a training mission. We passed a bus that was lying on its side in the road, and a fire was burning, and there appeared to be injured passengers inside. Our instinct was to just stop and help, of course, but the Kenyan Special Forces officer had the driver skirt around the scene. It was amazing. We're like, wait. He said to us, "Hey, that's a honeypot trap." We're like, oh, interesting. The perpetrators were trying to bait. They had literally tipped the truck over, the van, and lit this fire to bait a sympathetic foreigner to stop their car to help them out, in which case they would mug them or kidnap them for ransom. If I had been alone or with one or two others, and maybe not with the Navy SEALs or Special Forces, I could easily have fallen for it. In that case, I would have had to extract myself from that mess using my other skills. The world can be a little bit dangerous and chaotic at an individual level, even though we live in one of the safest times in the human history, which is kind of an interesting conundrum. But I say, regardless, destiny favors the prepared and the informed and the offensive. Being sheepdog strong requires that you set aside worry about what others think of you. If you're visible or overt with your preparation, some might think it's extreme. Just don't make a big deal of it. Those same people will be running to you in a crisis. It's a good idea, though, to be discreet and also have fun with this training. It's really, really fun to learn how to defend yourself. It's not my intention for you to be an outlier. Quite the opposite. I think all leaders need to have an offensive mindset and be willing to train their body and their mind and spirit for any crisis, whatever the world or other individuals throw at them. The wolves, violent offenders, predatory competitors, or those stirred up by Mother Nature are out there. They're watching, waiting, and they're ready to strike. All right, let's talk about some other attributes of an offensive mindset that will sharpen your awareness as you routinely sharpen your sword through training. Single point focus. The samurai of ancient Japan were committed to what's called the Bushido Code. This held them to a strict discipline, always ready to fight to the death for their leaders. They were single point focused in their training and on their mission. To the extreme, I might add, where they would give up their own life easily every day. And if their actions were deemed cowardly or dishonorable, they would take their own life. I'm not asking you to do that. But I do think that their example is interesting in terms of the discipline of that single point focus. The Spartan king Leonidas was so focused on defeating the Persians or turning them back at Thermopylae that he was willing to fight to the death with his team of 300. The samurai and the Spartans knew that this focus on training and mission wasn't just about personal valor. There was no pride or ego in it. It was about protecting a way of life. They weren't seeking military victory, those 300 Spartans. He knew the odds were fruitlessly stacked against them. Rather, he wanted to create a new story. And he wanted that story to be told to all of Greece. And that story was of the unbelievable and unwavering courage and single point focus of these 300 Spartans, a single point focus on a moral victory of these brave, free Greek citizens over the enslaved and fear-motivated Persians. What a powerful story. With single point focus, Leonidas led his men from the front in that battle at the hot gates of Thermopylae. He didn't let any personal discomfort or, even his status where he could have sat it out, distract him from leading the men and lending his vision to the mission. They lost, of course, but the Greeks won the war because of the story that they told. And then, of course, the Greek civilization went on to inspire Western ideals. Were it not for the single point focus of these men, we might be all speaking Arabic or Farsi. A similar example could be made of Winston Churchill and his unwavering single point focus on defeating Nazi Germany. The Brits could be speaking German now had he not held his course, maybe us as well. These were warriors who were willing to step into the breach to save entire cultures at great risk to their own skins. That kind of single point focus is powerful. Single point focus builds an offensive mindset and requires that you narrow your attention to only the most critical and important targets, those targets that will ensure success. All else is ignored, postponed, or delegated. When the risks are that high, such as pivoting your business in a crisis or covering down to protect your family in a shooter situation, then single point focus turns the stress of those situations into success. Related to single point focus is uncommon resolve. An example of uncommon resolve, a small one anyways, was the resolve it took me to write 3 books in 1 year in 2012, when I wrote The Way of the Seal, 8 Weeks of Seal Fit, and the second edition of this book, Unbeatable Mind, all in an 11-month period. That level of resolve is required for any worthy goal aligned with your purpose and mission. Precisely because there will be unreasonable challenges that confront you whenever you take on an unreasonable goal. So that requires uncommon resolve. Getting through Navy SEAL training required uncommon resolve. I recall one class from BUDS, which was secured from week 4 of training with only 27 graduates after starting with 175 students. That's uncommon resolve. And that's pretty normal to have happen in SEAL training. Is uncommon resolve a quality that can be developed? I believe so. If we are disciplined and training in the skills that I bring forth in this book, Unbeatable Mind, every day, uncommon resolve will be a natural outcome of that. But fortifying the following 5 attributes can go a long way to shoring this up. First is desire. Desire is the passion to see the outcome you want as if nothing else mattered. The second is belief, and that means to believe in yourself, to believe in your purpose or calling and your mission. And the third is a can-do attitude. I would also say a can-do, will-do attitude, which mobilizes your team. Like Yoda said, do or do not, there is no try. The next is discipline, being willing to give up unnecessary attachments and commitments, to put in the effort and to stick to it until you're done. And 5 is determination, which is an unwavering commitment to stay the course and never quit. Clearly, discipline and determination are closely related. If your uncommon resolve requires stepping into the breach at risk of life or limb in a crisis, as my teammate Glenn Doherty did in Benghazi and our SEAL teammate Michael Murphy did in Afghanistan, then it'll require each of these attributes in full measure. It requires a desire to serve others, an unmistakable belief in your skills and the correctness of your actions. It requires an attitude of will do versus I'll try, and the discipline and determination to pull it off and to go the distance, to stay the course and never quit regardless of the challenges that face you. You're consistently focusing on these character attributes and developing them through challenge and feedback and corrective action will bring an uncommon resolve to accomplish anything you set your mind to. this is no newsflash, but you know that I push myself pretty hard, physically and mentally. From our 22 million burpee challenge, which we recently completed, by the way, to the hard-hitting SEAL-Fit operator workouts that I do 3 to 4 times a week. You know, my body does pay a price. And recently it was been my knees, probably from years and years of running in the SEAL teams, where my knees have started to get really sore. And I needed to do something a little different. Enter aloe-based CBD products from Mission Farms. I started using them a little while ago, and boy, has it made a big, big difference. I get this icy hot sensation when I apply it to my knees. It feels great. And then the CBD kicks in, which reduces the pain and the swelling. It's my go-to. I put it on in the morning when I go to bed at night and before and after I train. Now, you might be a skeptic about CBD. I was initially, but I did my research. Now, CBD doesn't get you high. It has no psychoactive effect whatsoever. It simply enhances your body's natural abilities to treat pain and inflammation. How? Well, you've probably heard of the runner's high. When you push your body to the limit, you begin to experience pain and swelling. Then your body releases a chemical called anandamide. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Well, it doesn't matter. Anandamide naturally reduces swelling, it eases pain, and it gives you a sense of well-being and enables you to push harder, go further, and feel better. CBD simply makes more anandamide available in your body by temporarily blocking the receptors that absorb it. So this is sciencey a little bit, I admit, but I want you to know that this is based in science. CBD isn't masking pain and inflammation. It's actually enhancing your body's natural ability to treat it. And I think it really works. It's made a big difference for me. I was introduced to Mission Farms by one of the co-founders who went through our SEAL-Fit training. They farm their hemp organically in Bend, Oregon. They use all natural ingredients like organic aloe and essential oils. Their CBD is triple tested to ensure that it's pure and effective. The aloe-based pain gel is their number one selling product, and with good reason. It's got hundreds of 5-star reviews, and you can add my review to that list. If you don't love it as much as I do, they'll refund your money. Now that is a stand. If you'd like to give it a try, go to missionfarmscbd.com/unbeatable. That's mission, MISSION, farms, FARMS, CBD.com/unbeatable. Use the code unbeatable to save $10 on each order. That's Mission Farm CBD unbeatable/unbeatable, and the coupon code is unbeatable. The link is also in the notes to this podcast, and we'll post it on Facebook or Instagram. Okay, check it out. I really am behind this product. It's fantastic. A positive mental state. No matter how shitty things get in VUCA, you can always find a silver lining if you choose to look for it. When I heard SEAL instructors shouting, "Failure's not an option, Divine," I tacitly understood that they were saying, keep a positive mental state by learning from the obstacles, from the failures. It could also be characterized by the statement, there are winners and there are learners. So you can be both. You make the choice to let go of any attachment to outcomes. So any failure or misfortune that others think has befallen you has actually been a learning moment for you. And it holds the seed of your growth as you move on to your next target, your next opportunity to succeed. It requires a positive mental state combined with an offense all the time attitude. This brings you explosive power. You never let circumstances or another individual or organization dictate your actions. You watch the trends, you learn iteratively, one step at a time, you stay ahead of the curve or the competition. This mental attribute of positive mindset does not sit well with pessimistic, hard-nosed, analytical type who love to analyze everything to death so that they control every step of an execution plan. those plans, those people are doomed for failure, in my opinion. Positive mental state requires flexibility in thought and action, and a willingness to abandon a plan on the spot to plot a new course when the circumstances dictate. Every time I set out on a new venture, I expect to find victory where it's at. That's another term that came from my ninjutsu instructor, Sensei Shane Phelps. Find victory where it's at. That means that setbacks are expected and you prepare for them in advance, both with your mindset, your offensive mindset, and with actual contingency plans. Every day will bring the unexpected, so you'll turn those unexpected challenges into opportunities, and you mitigate any fallout by learning the lessons and accelerating your growth and your execution. With this approach, you find victory in some form, no matter what happens. Rigidity can get you injured or even killed on a SEAL op, and it can get you metaphorically killed in business. You must hold a positive vision of the outcomes you desire and then allow for spontaneity and setbacks to inform the actual actions you take on a day-to-day basis. Remember, no plan survives contact with the enemy, and the enemy has a say. Without a positive mental state, you can get blown over by the winds of change or manipulated and outmaneuvered by others. You must find victory right here, right now, with the cards you are dealt. Excuses, finger-pointing, and soul-grinding negativity will slow you down and destroy opportunity. When things go off the rails, the unbeatable leader doesn't assign blame and wallow in self-pity. He or she immediately seeks the positive lesson and acts with courage. Discernment. Discernment is to be keenly aware of what thoughts and emotions you will entertain and to act on. Sounds easier than it is to achieve. It requires you to examine each and every thought and to be able to seek the highest truth from the broadest range of perspectives, including what I call the universal truth perspective. The process fosters humility and inclusiveness as your ego's selfish wants and needs are subdued in favor of a higher self drive, a drive for the greater good. Discernment leads to wisdom, which is one of three treasures, I believe: truth, wisdom, and love. Three treasures we seek through our training. Discernment helps us avoid distracting entanglements so we can focus in service while maintaining an inward orientation toward vertical growth and our development. As I've been discussing in this book, discernment requires that we distrust our biased mind, knowing that most thinking from an unexamined mind is deeply flawed. We'll seek discernment by questioning everything, and we'll seek discernment through a commitment to a daily practice of the unbeatable mind skills of internal potential, such as box breathing and concentration and attention control and mindful awareness and visualization. We can improve our discernment by understanding and upgrading 5 primary skills, which represent the 5 primary ways that our minds work, our rational mind, or our brain mind, I should say. These are: 1, improving rational thought, which is left hemispherical, analytical, deductive reason, and linear thinking. So, most of us think as rational thinkers, and even if they're not very rational. So we want to examine that and recognize that it can be improved because it's biased and it's negative. 2 is improving memory, remembering past events more accurately, and also changing our context of what the event meant. Memory is essentially the access and retrieving of stored imagery that have some sort of emotional meaning attached to it. Research has concluded that a large percentage of our memories are flawed or outright false because we place an outsized emotional response to the original event, and we don't have a good capacity to understand that event at the moment that we store that memory. To add insult to injury, time erodes the original meaning and confuses the details, minimizing some and magnifying others, or falsifying them altogether. So, when I was with my SEAL teammates, every time a story was told, the quote, "I was knee-deep in hand grenade pins Stories got bigger and more outlandish every time I heard them. 3, understanding and dealing with fantasy, imagination, and visualization. Fantasy and imagination allow us to devise plans and recall what worked or didn't in the past. This third skill, memory and cognition, or rational skills, allow humans to devise plans and recall what worked or didn't in the past. But this third skill of imagery allows humans to look into the future to create a new reality, or to look back and revise flawed memories, like I just mentioned. The skill of imagery and imagination and visualization requires a lot of practice, without which one will simply lead to default mode fantasizing. The default mode is considered to be the mode of 95% of the population, 90% of the time. And that is fantasy, rumination, obsessive looping, and mass media-driven dogma. The fourth is, and I've already talked about this a little bit, but improving your skill of direct perception. It's an extraordinarily valuable skill, but often ignored or misunderstood or just not talked about. But it happens naturally with highly trained creative artists, musicians, athletes, inventors, etc. This training, or this direct perception, largely comes from the right hemisphere and results in sudden recognition of meaning from patterns that have been observed subconsciously over time. Or it can be heard or experienced from the heart mind, which I call intuition, or from the belly mind, which I call instinct. And it can be discerned by listening carefully to the soul's insight, or just, I should say, insight from the soul, which helps clarify some of that other thinking. Finally, there's evidence of trans-rational information coming from outside of our whole body mind, which can be picked up, such as picking up someone else's thoughts and feelings, or some sort of collective morphological transmission, or maybe the voice of God. And the last skill is dreaming. This skill is considered by many to be a subconscious processing of the vast trough of information experiences you take in every day to help find context and meaning. Perhaps it's the mind journeying to other places, such as astral travel, who knows? However, I'm not an expert on this, nor on sleep, what happens in deep sleep or dream sleep, so I'll allow others to opine further on it. I do believe that dreaming is an important skill, and that looking into lucid dreaming or dream yoga are valuable practice to explore, and that we pay attention to the information that we can discern from our dreams. The good news, the reason I brought these 5 skills up, is that we can enhance our skills in these areas through training and practice. It requires us to chip away every day at working on improving our rational cognition and eradicating bias, improving our memory, our recall, the quality of our recall, and the context of the events that we recall. It requires that we improve our ability to decouple from default mode fantasy and to use imagination to create a more powerful future, and then to practice that through visualization. It requires that we improve our direct perception through mindfulness and through silence practices, time in nature, less doing and more being. And it requires that we pay attention to our dreams and we sleep better. We use proper sleep hygiene so that we can dream better and then get more value out of our dreaming. Excelling in chaos. This is one of the more useful attributes of the unoffensive mindset that a leader can develop, and that's to remain perfectly calm and controlled, even in the most intense circumstances, to be unflappable while under extreme pressure, to make good decisions, and to lead you and your team to the other side of that crisis. It is this quality that's most attractive to followers in these high-stress, high-risk environments. Observing someone in charge who's super calm and in control of a bad situation brings a sense of calm and relief for others. So to embody this attribute many would consider you to be a natural leader. Good news is that this is also a skill that can be developed with a little effort. The most valuable methods for developing the ability to excel and thrive in chaos are: one is arousal control, and this is accomplished through box breathing, which I've covered at length. Number two is desensitization training, such as our Seal Fit Crucible. This is where you train the edge and you desensitize yourself to what previously couldn't be done, now can be done. You get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you do this a little bit every day. The third is attention control, and this is, I alluded to this earlier, but the ability to collapse your attention in a crisis so that you're not distracted and using energy on all sorts of things that are irrelevant. You're able to focus on the right things and keep your attention focused on the right things. The fourth is executive decision capacity. And this is essentially to be able to make decisions really quickly using the OODA loop and decision models so you can stay front sight focused and move forward, just, eliminating doubt through action. The fifth is communication clarity. This requires that you actually learn to listen without judging and to be very, very clear so that you're responsible for how it lands, meaning that you are aware of the effect of your words and how you deliver them on others so that you can be clear in your communication. And then last, it requires the skill of always rebalancing the 6 pillars, meaning you're always keeping your body and brain in optimal balance so that the internal environment, which is exposed to the external environment, isn't throwing you off track, leading to bad decisions. And, especially when there's a crisis. So you're constantly rebalancing in a crisis so you can take care of yourself so that you can make good decisions. Next up, fortitude. With any big project or challenging initiative, you'll inevitably experience discomfort and fatigue. Get used to it, but that will impact you at a physical, mental, emotional, and even spiritual level. Like I just mentioned, you need to rebalance, to recharge, and you need to plan to recover. But sometimes you don't have the luxury of time to do that. So when that happens, you need to embrace the suck and step up your performance in spite of the fatigue and sleep deprivation. That takes fortitude. Fortitude requires a determination to succeed regardless of the limitation and obstacles in front of you. The trait of fortitude brings presence and aliveness, or requires presence and aliveness, where you can tap into more energy. You always have 40% more when you're present. When you're pressed to the wall, you feel like you're going to give up the game. That's the time to up your game. And you do that by being more present, tapping into extended flow where pain, fatigue, and doubt disappear. This feeling of an unbeatable or indomitable spirit flows through you, where you just know for certain that you're going to prevail. And you swallow any urges to project weakness. In these moments, you begin to persevere. You know you're going to persevere against all odds. You have steely eyes, deep breathing, and a smile on your face. This is the ultimate stoic moment, which helps your team stand taller and suffer alongside you in silence. You embrace the suck together. To develop fortitude, you've got to relish hard things. You got to take on challenges deliberately and desensitize yourself to new levels of discomfort. You avoid the pity party of others and project a confident and steady motivation. Steady motivation built on the big 4 skills of mental toughness that we discussed earlier: breath control, positive self-talk, winning in your mind, visualizing the win, and micro goals. You can't control what happens in the world, only what happens inside of you. Fortitude requires you take responsibility of that inner state and never let external forces determine how you respond or react. Again, one of the best expressions of fortitude is to find the means to put a smile on your face and encouraging words for others during the most challenging of times. Even smiling helps. Studies have shown that smiling, even when under pressure, actually makes you more resilient and it'll make you feel better. Manipulating the smiling muscles stimulates the release of serotonin and dopamine. These are natural painkillers. Some in mental health field rely on smiling therapy or laughing therapy to improve the positive attributes and attitudes and to improve optimism in clients suffering from anxiety or depression. Smiling and laughing do work. I can attest to that. I've used it in our training, and I use it myself. After my box breathing practice, when no one's around, of course, sometimes I'll drop in the technique during live events. Picked it up from the ancient practice of laughing yoga. It's a real thing. Put a smile on your face when the going gets tough. You might have to fake it till you make it, but it works. Even if you think it's just the placebo effect, it will have a positive impact and shore up your fortitude. And guess what? Smiling's free, just like breathing. I think the best way, though, to develop fortitude as a leader is to take your eyes off your own suffering and put them on others. Guess what? They're in the same boat as you and are going to be suffering as much or more than you. So lending an encouraging word and a helping hand will comfort them and will leave you in a more positive mental state. It's impossible to be negative when you're earnestly helping another in need. Your teammates will want to follow you if you're embracing the suck and serving them. So slap a smile on your face, support your teammates, and repeat the phrase, pain is weakness leaving my body, or I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul. That's from William Henley's Invictus. You'll notice pain begin to dissipate and your internal power elevate. As you grow more pain tolerant and embrace the suck of challenge, you'll develop great inner strength. And the last attribute of the offensive mind is kokoro. This is the word we use to describe and name our most intense training at SEALFIT Kokoro Camp. First, a quote. The hearing that is only in the ears is one thing. The hearing of understanding is another. But the hearing of the spirit is not limited to any one faculty, to the ear or the mind. Hence, it demands emptiness of all the faculties. And when the faculties are empty, the whole being listens. There is then a direct grasp of what is right there before you that can never be heard with the ear or understood with the mind. That's from the Taoist Chang Tzu. Kokoro, you may have heard me say before, means to merge your heart and your mind into your actions, in service, I might add. It also can mean whole mind or embodied whole mind living. That's the experience of kokoro when you're activated in flow. Your actions flow spontaneously. They have an effortless perfection around them. And your whole body, mind, belly, heart, and head and hands are all aligned. This is not natural for most leaders, but I believe it's going to be one of the most powerful skills for leaders in the future. The story that we've been living through that we need to shed of staunch individualism and separation has been held our collective consciousness captive for a long time. We're starting to shrug it off. When I see leaders embrace the essence of kokoro, they stand out so much from others that they're stamped as special. If that's the case, so be it. Let's be special. Let special be the new normal. That's uncommon. Kokoro is developed through the sum total of all the practices we've been discussing here in this chapter and the entire book of Unbeatable Mind. Breath work, concentration, mindful awareness of reactive pattern conditionings, feeding the courage wolf, visualizing a desired future, a positive desired future, overcoming past conditioning and biased reactionary thinking, contemplation of one's beliefs in alignment with universal beliefs and your higher self, right? Direct insight, all of these lead to the development and integration of kokoro. Practices of the heart that lead to the integration of kokoro include gratitude practice, loving kindness, letting go of attachments, eradicating your shadow through therapy and self-awareness work, recognizing the reality of the sameness of others as opposed to the differences so that we can end separation. And also the practices of service that lead to integration in Kokoro include uncovering your archetypal purpose or calling in life, curating that powerful vision for your future and your mission, understanding your essential why and being able to connect it to your mission and your task, and aligning all of that with your family and teams so you can serve something bigger than you. You can make an impact. By the way, those are the three paths that most great spiritual traditions discuss, at least the traditions of yoga and some of the Eastern traditions: the path of the mind, the path of the heart, and the path of action. And our way at Unbeatable Mind is to combine all three into the path of integration. That leads to accelerated growth, accelerated development, mastery, and service. And the experience is Kokoro. With Kokoro, you frame your challenges cognitively, but solve them with a belly, heart, whole mind approach that includes the interests of all parties in a three-sphere I, we, and it, or self-team and organizational approach. It's multidimensional, holographic living. Cultivating Kokoro requires that you focus on your larger responsibility of fulfilling your purpose every day. And that purpose is in the service of others, the environment, and ultimately your global family. That's what I call the world-centric leader. In the next chapter, chapter 9, I'm going to examine more values which you will be habituating into virtues so that you can shore up your sense of what ground you stand on in life, what your rock bottom beliefs are. That way, you'll know that you stand for something so that you don't fall for anything. That's it, folks. Chapter 8 of Unbeatable Mind. Thanks so much for sticking with me and hearing me out on some of these powerful ideas. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, share it and share it with your friends. And please rate this podcast at iTunes or wherever you listen to it. Super stoked that you are on a path to unbeatable. Path of the heart, the path of the mind, path of service, path of integration. Hoo-yah. Let's do this. See you next time. Divine out.